well, obviously, thankfully, you debut in 2019 when the world is just fine. It was fine. But then you've got a book that comes out, and then you've got a picture book in 2020. You're launching here in 2021. I saw that you did for Much Ado About Baseball, you were able to do a virtual launch with New York City Bookstore, the Books of Wonder, and Chris Barron, who also had a novel coming out. How have you been able to launch your book amidst this whole pandemic type thing that's been going on? I don't know if you heard about that, being a doctor and all, but how has launching in 2019 pre-pandemic and now post-pandemic, how has that differed, and where have you found the most success to be able to get the word out about your books?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Okay, so first of all, I have to say that so much of publishing is very opaque. You only find out about like how many books you sold like twice a year, right? And that's like the official number, right? Your publisher will tell you how many books have sold because you got to calculate royalties. Okay, so knowing that, which is kind of hilarious in the 21st century, that we can't have like real numbers, like real-time numbers, but that's fine. It doesn't matter.
Why would you want to be incentivized in that way?
So just knowing that, I decided a long time ago that I need to not worry about like actual sales. I'm here to write things that I love and that I hope other people will love, and get the word out, just because I love the stuff that I write, and I also love the stuff that other people write. So I want to like shout about books that I love, right? So that's my goal. And then the other thing is that because I write for children, I can't like contact children, like that's not right. So I want to connect with the people who can get books to children. So that includes booksellers, of course, and librarians and teachers. So the wonderful thing about launching in 2019 was that I got to go in person to lots of things. So I had an in-person launch, and then I had a big party at my house. I had a ball, and I got to go to meet booksellers at their conferences. I got to visit schools and do school visits. I got to go to nerd camps, which are kind of like educator camps where they invite authors. I got to go to those in person. It was awesome. And I got to go to bookstores in person. Like, that was fantastic. I had such fun. And so the great thing, in addition to like meeting people in person, and like, I had baking contests and bookstores and libraries. Like, we had a ball. Like, I got to meet all these kids. They were so wonderful. They baked creatively. They asked me fantastic questions about my book. It was just such a joy. So the great thing about all of that was that it, like, fills up your heart. It's like, oh, like, it's so great that when you get to meet the kids who read your book. But the other thing is that I get to make all these connections with bookstores and libraries and teachers. And so when the world shut down and it was just crazy COVID times, I had a virtual book launch for my picture book, and lots of people got to come, even people who were across the country who would never have been able to come to an in-person book launch. And I still got to do school visits, and I still got to, do nerd camps virtually with teachers and librarians. So, and part of it was because I'd already made connections. Part of it is because I was in a book promotion group that we have wonderful people who are all looking out for everyone and telling each other about opportunities. And part of it is because like we just had to, like, what else were we going to do? So it's been okay. I have to say, so the first, I had 2 books earlier in this year, and they were both virtual launches, and that was great. It was, it was fine. But after a while, it gets really tiresome being in a room alone by yourself looking at a screen. So for Much Ado, I was lucky because enough people were vaccinated. COVID rates were low enough. We had an in-person outdoor launch with my local bookstore, the Silver Unicorn Bookstore, and at a park, where there were kids playing on a playground. It was awesome. And then we had a party at home, and then I got to do a virtual launch as well. So it was kind of the best of both worlds. And I think that during the pandemic, when everyone was just alone and scared and dealing with all kinds of things, writing helped me, and books helped me, reading helped me. And so I held on to that. I think I bought more books during the pandemic than I have ever bought in my life during a year, because I was just like, I want to keep bookstores going. I'm going to keep, like, if I thought about it, I'm going to buy it. I'm just going to buy a book from you. That's fine. And like, now I have a giant, stack of books that I need to read, which is fine. But which is my usual state of being, only multiplied a little bit. It's fine. So yeah, so it's been not always easy, but it's been wonderful in many ways. There's been a lot of wonderful connections. I've been shocked at how beautiful a virtual event can be. I've been surprised with how much emotion people allow themselves to express over a screen, but it has happened, and I'm grateful. And so I'm always grateful that we're still able to connect to each other, and that we all still need books, even in these times. And now that we're coming out of them and things are getting better, I hope that we keep both things. I hope we go back to in-person things, but I hope we keep some of the virtual stuff, because it means that lots of people from lots of different places can still participate.
Yeah, I would love to see most book launches have some virtual component as well. Yeah. Why wouldn't you want your fans from Indiana or from wherever to join in?
Yeah.
But selfishly, just focus on Indiana. Those are the fans that matter the most.
I'm going to keep going back to Louisville, so I'm going to have to like drop by Indiana one of these days. So I've been to Ohio and I've been to Kentucky, and my daughter's at college in Nashville. So like, hey, why not?
Oh, you'll be all through the area then.
Yeah.
So, all conversations sooner or later seems like lead to the pandemic. So before we move on, because I want to ask you about publicists, and about some of your school visits and all the wonderful stuff you're doing to market the book. But going through the last year, which maybe it's just better forgotten. Maybe it's better not to talk about it. But being a doctor and being informed about what's going on with the virus, does that lessen your anxiety, or does that increase your anxiety as you're experiencing it? Or is there any way to know, since you had to experience the whole thing as you?
Oh, that's such a great question. I will just say I'm lucky because I work at Best General Hospital in Boston, and I'm just lucky. I feel fortunate because some of the people that were on the forefront of thinking about this epidemic and how to treat it, once people had it, and like what the approach should be to practicing medicine, to everything, are at my hospital. So I was very proud to be, part of that organization. I feel like after the initial scrambling, terrifying time in March through like early May of last year, I felt like we had a plan to keep people safe, and we went back to seeing patients in person starting in June in my outpatient practice. And I had worked in the respiratory illness clinics that were, like the places where we put anybody with respiratory symptoms went there, so that everyone would be suited up and, would be safe, and we could do swabs there. And then they didn't need people from other practices, after a while, which was really comforting, because it meant that the numbers were going down and they were able to, man these facilities more easily. So I don't know. I think that it was a scary time, but it was always heartening to see people pulling together, just see people working so hard on behalf of everyone, and once the vaccines came out, I mean, that was just a very incredible process to be a part of any of that, helping to encourage people to get it, helping to schedule people to get it, all that kind of stuff. It was very exciting and exhilarating, because that, like, we got to see in real time in our lifetime what can happen when science gets it right, so that was really thrilling and heartening to be a part of. And just you can see some of the best of humanity come out in times like that. That's not to say that this year wasn't really, really hard. It's been a very, very difficult year. And that includes 2021. It's been a very, very difficult year. So I don't know. I think all of this stuff is it's an opportunity for everyone to reflect on what they love the most and what they care the most about, and to try and focus on that more as we go forward. Because no one, I mean, like, you couldn't have told me in 2019 that this would have happened. I never would have believed you. Like, I would have just been like, that doesn't happen. But it did. So now that we've, are coming through a pandemic after all the loss that we have all suffered as a world and as a country, how do we take the good things from this experience? And there are a few good things. We learned about what we could let go of, and we learned about what was essential. So how do we hold on to what is essential and just keep that in our focus as we go forward?
I remain increasingly optimistic, cautiously optimistic, but I reached a point where I short-circuited somewhere in there. And then about January 20th of this year, when everybody was officially signed in, and again, I apologize because I know you're an ardent Trump supporter and don't want to hear this, but once the politics were settled, okay, we survived. As improbable as that is, I think there's going to be an after this.
Yeah.
Well, what matters most now that we're all living on borrowed time? What's the thing I most want to write? And that's what I've been doing this year. I'm not writing anything about politics, pandemic. No, I'm writing the happiest little tacking animal story you ever saw. Just following my heart. All right, for however long I got, this is what I want to do now, and it puts everything in perspective in a way that will probably last the rest of my life, certainly, and probably the rest of the lives of most people listening to us.
Absolutely. Well, that's awesome. I've always heard people, and this has happened to me too, when you write what is in your heart, what your heart is telling you to write, it always leads to good things. Always.
Your mouth to whoever's ears. I hope that is so. But you know what? The writing itself is a good thing. The joy story is plenty reward enough.